Our guest today is Jason Atkinson. He's the director of the Reshape Functional Wellness and Weight Loss Clinic. He's a certified health coach, personal trainer, dietary supplement specialist. Jason personally lost 75 pounds of body fat, reversed his metabolic disorders with diet and lifestyle. He's the author of 2 books, including the most recent, the 14-Day Carnivore Challenge, and host of the Reshape Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. He holds a very special place in my heart. We're going to get into it right after this.
The guessing games, faking health, playing diet names, low fat life, vegan soul, but deep inside I didn't feel whole. Then came fire, then came fat, steak on the plate, I bounced right back. No more crashing, no more drag, just eggs and butter in my bag. Meat made me whole, yeah, you know it's true. Brought me back to what I always knew. Meat made me whole, now I feel alive. Give me that say goodbye to the low-fat blood. Meat made me whole.
The best part about what we do here at the Meat of the Matter is we get to hear people from all walks of life. And Jason Atkinson holds a very special place for me. And we'll get into that in a second. But Jason, welcome to the Meat of the Matter. Thanks for coming and talking to us today, because I think you're in your title, in your tag, in your especially your Instagram handle, Reshape Your Life, I think is a very important thing to understand. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you having me here. And Mark, awesome to talk with both of you today.
Excellent, man. Well, so before we get into your story and how you got there, I'm just going to let everybody know how cool Jason is, because, you know, with my situation, especially on Instagram, I was almost at this place where I was about to go live. And, you know, the beautiful thing about this community with the people that get it, we take care of each other. And Jason reached out to me and said, hey, man, I want to help you get to where you want to be. And he reached out just on his own and got me on his little Instagram live. And man, it was heartfelt, and really appreciate it. And we had a quick little conversation, and it helped me get to where I'm at. So I love you, buddy. Right away. That's awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, how did this happen for you? How did you become, especially with your podcast and your story and Reshape Your Life?
Yeah. So this has been a process over a course of many years. You mentioned in the intro there that I lost 75 pounds of body fat. I've maintained a new healthy weight now for over 10 years. And I did that primarily through diet and lifestyle intervention, which we're going to get into some detail about. I had, for lack of a better term, I was basically a fat kid growing up. I grew up, became a fat adult. I was obese my entire life, as I mentioned, up until about 10 years ago. And the real tipping point was one day at a routine doctor's office visit, I found out that I weighed 254 pounds. That was an all-time high for me. And the doctor's office informed me that I was in the early stages of high blood pressure as well as pre-diabetic. So I looked down the road and I saw a future that I did not want for myself or my family. I took my health into my own hands. They recommended that I could lose some weight as a way of maybe helping to resolve these conditions before being placed on medication. But they didn't have a solid plan for me to be able to accomplish that. So along the way to researching and finding out what it took for me to take charge of my own health, to lose the weight, and to be able to sustain that, I discovered the plan that I use now with clients since having become certified and doing this on a professional level.
Excellent, man. I mean, there's so many similarities between you and me, especially with the overweight being the short. I was the short all my life. And it was just a scale of how big I got. I mean, I was, 240 pounds at 5'6.5". I feel you. And so we're probably get into quite a bit of the medical system today, because how did you feel about that when they weren't really giving you any hope? They were just kind of telling you the way it was.
I was a little disillusioned, but I'm at least grateful that the option to lose weight before being placed on medication was given to me.
Mm.
A lot of practices now may just recommend going straight to medication and not even give people the idea that there are some things we can do with diet and lifestyle that may prevent the need for medication.
Mm. Yeah, and that's
Right.
currently what's going on. That's what's currently going on in the world at the moment. Everybody's in a really really bad place. So they're getting obese. They're putting on so much weight, and we're hearing all these doctors. We're hearing all these PTs, dietitians, nutritionists. We're all hearing this word genetic. It's a disease. But when you look at the diet, you can clearly see what the problem is, and it's amazing because I know you guys were speaking about this before I came on about the system. I know the guy in America is trying to change the system. He's trying to bring in dietitians, but it won't make any difference if he's not changing the curriculum. Because at the end of the day, we all know how bad the nutrition school is at the moment. I done it myself 20 years ago. I studied nutrition. I paid a fortune to study nutrition. I was in it for nearly 4 years. All those certs now are in the bin. I don't use them anymore. I used to coach this way as well myself. For 20 years, I used to coach people like low calorie, low fat, the complete bullshit that we were always told. And when people used to get back to me and say to me, I'm losing all this weight, but I've developed diabetes, or I've developed this condition, or why am I getting these regular hunger signals? All these hard questions that I couldn't figure out. Just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't understand why they weren't getting the results that they wanted. Because I was like everyone else. I just thought that the best way to get healthy is just to lose weight. Just lose weight and you'll be healthy. Forget about what you're eating. So I was part of this club for a very very long time, and it's not until you came into this lifestyle and your eyes wake your eyes open and you're like, okay, well, hang on a second. Obesity is not as hard as you guys think. You can actually lose the weight regardless. We all need to question what goes into your body. At the end of the day, me and Tony always say this in the podcast, that your body's able to heal. If you put the right strategies in place, your body will heal. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
And go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, don't let me interrupt you, Tony, but something that Mark said, that we know what the problem is. And I want to make sure that we share with your audience here today so that they know what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned my book, The 14-Day Carnivore Challenge. I hope that your listeners will pick up a copy of that. It is available on Amazon. And page 1, day 1, I wrote, if there's a ground zero for the obesity epidemic, it would be the unveiling of the USDA dietary guidelines for Americans.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big bang, or the shot heard around the world now, as both of you are in different countries, but that Western diet and that Western influence, Mark, as you mentioned, is causing health problems around the world now. So we can trace its origins back to that point in time,
Mm-hmm.
when this grain-based, so-called low-fat, healthy diet took over of the traditional diet that people had been healthy on, for hundreds of years prior to that. And that's really the beginning of the dilemma that we're in now, with obesity and metabolic disorders being rampant.
For sure. And you mentioned something very important there, Jason, as well. And Mark, like international. I mean, whether we like it or not, I'm in Canada, Mark's in Ireland, Jason's in Georgia. The world models their own health food pyramid guidelines, whatever, around that American model. And, this is an international thing that everybody's been like, that it's been pushed on. And you can just see with India being the highest, they haven't changed much. They've just changed the Western influence. They're the highest diabetes on the planet. And, these are the things that most people don't connect the dots to. And Jason, like when you realized you had to change, when did you start to see and feel the changes that were leading you down to where you're at?
It was a gradual slide in the wrong direction, for sure. I can remember about a year prior to that doctor's office visit I was telling you about, stepping on the scale, weighing over 240, 245. And I thought to myself, oh, great, what's next? 250? Sure enough, another year goes by, now 250. So I wasn't looking good. I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't really performing that well. I was hitting the gym a few times a week. I've worked out now for over 25 years as a regular weekly thing that I do with weight training and cardio. I was exercising,
Mm,
but my diet wasn't in check, and I didn't have a real tangible goal in mind, and I didn't have a deadline, and I didn't have a reason to achieve it. So when those keys fell into place,
mm,
success was pretty quick, and it was pretty much automatic once I figured out exactly what I wanted, when I wanted it, and why I wanted it. And the main motivator for me was I didn't want to go on medication. I didn't want to be, 10, 15 years down the road, sick or having to be hospitalized or maybe have surgery, be a burden on my family, and that sort of thing. So that was what it took for me to really kick it into gear. But as far as what I really changed, I started off kind of not really knowing, just limiting portions. I knew that prioritizing protein was going to be part of the solution, having this health and fitness or bodybuilder type background, having been entertained by the bodybuilding world, I'll say, through the
mm,
muscle magazines and things like that in my early 20s, having some grasp of weight training and nutrition, and knowing, like I said, that protein was going to be a priority, but I was still eating pretty high carbohydrate. The first year or so, it was kind of slow and go, and it wasn't really until I discovered the very low carbohydrate or so-called keto or ketogenic approach that
yeah.
things really started heading in the right direction very dramatically and very quickly. And I've never looked back since I made that shift towards a more ketogenic or slash carnivore-ish. That's the next phase of the journey. We'll get into that in a minute. But once I eliminated the majority of the carbohydrates from my diet, the majority of the time, things really started moving along very quickly from that point.
Nah.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of leads us to like your take on, what your philosophy and your sort of training, educational idea is beautiful, because like we are obviously in the carnivore community, the carnivore space, but it's more than that. And I mean, Mark and I know, like, we get put into these boxes by everything, and
Uh,
it's more of a human framework, what you can tolerate, work with, but there is certain non-negotiables. And do you want to get into that now, Jason? Do you want
yeah,
to we can put up your Jason sent us this graph that's beautiful, and I'd love you to walk us through it, because it's
yeah,
pretty.
absolutely. You've got my target of human nutrition graphic that I created. This is a perfect way to illustrate what I'm talking about. And you mentioned carnivore. So to me, carnivore, keto, ketogenic, intermittent fasting, paleo slash primal, these are all part of a continuum of approaches that together are known as ancestral lifestyle or ancestral health principles. So this is an easy way for people to envision what I'm talking about. It's not absolutely necessary for everyone to go to an all meat diet in order to see some improvement. I coach and train professionally, and I do supply my clients, even my personal training clients, with some sort of a diet plan. And, I'm never going to suggest to somebody day one, you're going to eat nothing but meat from now on. That is not something that the majority of people would find very appealing, I don't think.
Mm,
But the point here is we can prioritize meat. Now, if we were to eliminate, let's say, everything that's non-essential or possibly problematic from the diet, we would arrive at that red bullseye right here in the middle, that big steak. That's the target. That's the bullseye. That's the most nutrient dense thing you can possibly get. That's ruminant meat. So our example in the modern world would be cattle, but traditionally or historically, ruminant meat could be buffalo or bison, elk, gazelle, goat, sheep, you name it. All these animals have in common their ability to upcycle nutrients from the environment and put it in the most bioavailable form for us to absorb. That has been vilified by those guidelines we were talking about earlier as something that we should somehow limit or avoid.
mm,
Just the opposite is true. On the outside of this target, you have the standard American diet, or we'll say the standard Western diet,
yeah.
and that consists of mainly ultra processed foods. These are things that are not even on the human diet. This is not an appropriate diet for humans. We're talking about things like sugar, high fructose corn syrup, flour, processed grains, industrial seed oils, and that makes up the bulk of the food that we consume in this country and now around the world. Sadly, those things are not even on the target. So if we just wanted to basically clean the diet up and start off with a basic elimination protocol, we're going to get rid of all the junk food. And that's basically what I did at the beginning of my journey. I knew I needed to, as bodybuilders or fitness enthusiasts would say, eat clean, not really having any notion of what that meant. When paleo was a big trend back in 2013, 2015, somewhere in there, I kind of jumped on that paleo bandwagon. But it's not necessary to go back to pre-agricultural time to see where all this trouble got started. If we just eliminated or reduced those big three ingredients that I mentioned earlier, the sugar, the wheat, flour, and grains, the seed oils, we could see vast improvements. And most people can benefit from just limiting those three things. You don't even have to give it up forever, but just don't make it the basis of your diet. As you know, we were instructed with our dietary guidelines that 6 to 11 servings of bread, rice, and pasta every single day. I don't know whoever really thought that was a great recommendation. But, the problem with those guidelines was that was given as health advice, but there was never a shred of scientific evidence to support that was a healthy diet. It was done for financial reasons. And now we're, seeing the long-term negative impacts of that as a society.
And the hardest part too is when we call it out, the people that don't really care think we're nuts.
Exactly.
And that's the shocking thing. And when you mentioned that the food guidelines, money and science and all this is bought and paid for, it's actually for somebody that's just sitting on the periphery that isn't really into this. I can see how people think that that's why would they ever do that to us? Why would the health food and all what you're saying? I love it, because just look at nature and the arguments that people have about supplements and, synthetic stuff, added fortification. If we're eating some kind of a human diet, we wouldn't have had to fortify this. We wouldn't have had
Yeah, and see the biggest thing I have with when I work with clients is making them understand they have a problem in the first place. Like when you talk to the average person, they'll always convince you, I'm eating healthy. I just need to lose weight. They're like, I just need to track my macros. And then they start talking about the diet, and we've all done it. It's like the oats in the morning, the fruits, the berries. Like they're having their protein bars, protein supplements. So they're absolutely convinced that they're leading a healthy lifestyle because they looked up someone on social media, or they've seen some dietitian on TV speaking about this. And it's just like, well, if you need to understand why you came to me in the first place. You have an addiction. And that's the biggest issue I have with people. People just don't understand that they do have an addiction to certain foods.
Right. And I have some insight on what you're saying, because it's not always the obvious things. We know, ice cream and cookies, that we know that's not the core of a healthy diet, but it's the things that are not healthy that are presented as being healthy.
Exactly.
Those whole grain, this and that, and heart healthy, blah, blah, blah. The fact that Honey Nut Cheerios can wear a logo that says this is heart healthy.
Exactly. Yeah.
They should come with a warning label. This product is directly related to the following health conditions.
Yes.
And I just, sorry, Tony, I was just going to say, like, when it comes to any diet, we can all agree that no matter what diet you're doing, whether it's paleo, low carb, the carnivore diet, the one thing we should always do is get rid of processed food, regardless. And to be fair, everybody in the world says that.
It's true.
But then after that, it's like, okay, they're clueless. They haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue. They're like, when you ask the average person, okay, can you tell me why this person needs to eat every couple of hours? Like, you look at obesity. The biggest issue we have with obesity is always hunger. I always say this. It's always hunger. When you talk to someone who's obese and you ask them, like, why can you not stick to a diet? they'll always say, I'm always craving food. I'm always hungry. And they're saying, okay, well, are you eating processed food? And they're like, no, I'm not eating processed food. My dietitian has me on
Right.
this diet where I'm eating carbohydrates. And it's like, well, there's the problem right there.
Yep.
There's the problem right there. And then when you go into the hospital and they're medicating you and they're looking after you, what are they feeding you? It's again, it's highly processed. Do you think that just having like a steak dinner with mashed potato and vegetables and gravy and all that shit is going to help you?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and
So we just sorry, Tony, go ahead.
no, it's true, and there's so much. Like, I think we could probably do a whole show on the outside of this bullseye. Like, I mean, bread isn't bread anymore. It's just, you get with the facts. Like, there's no business seed oils being in a product for whatever reason. I mean, you know, the seed oils are heart healthy and Honey Nut Cheerios, and then what? The bread, the Wonder Bread with a bunch of like 50 ingredients is the same shit. It's really kind of, you know, it's hard to realize that our food, especially speaking, Jason, from an ancestral standpoint, has been adulterated from every corner, from every aspect.
Absolutely.
And I want to get into the next rung. Or
the next ring on the target here. Yeah. The closer we get to that bullseye, the lower the energy density and the higher the protein percentage and nutrient density. So those animal foods really represent the most nutrient dense foods we can possibly consume.
Yeah.
Okay, so one layer in from your paleo primal approach, you've got something like a ketogenic diet, which still has some plant materials in it, but it's mostly just fibrous plant material. You know, some vegetables, maybe some low sugar fruit. So we've knocked out some of those natural foods that may be a little higher in starches and sugar, like honey, for example, or tubers. You know, tubers are starchy type, like a carrot, you know, things that have a higher carbohydrate content. Yeah. Now, carbohydrate is not the only enemy, but it's the refined and processed carbohydrates that represent way too much energy without enough nutrients. Yeah. And so the closer we get to that higher protein, the better off we're going to do. Fiber is pretty neutral. And honestly, when we're looking at real foods, there's only a handful of true vegetation that's edible. Most of what we call vegetables are actually fruit. So peppers, cucumbers, that sort of thing, that's all fruit. You know, your higher fat content fruit like olives and avocados and things like that, those are A-OK on a ketogenic type protocol. And then one layer in from that is raise the protein through the roof and cut the carbs down to barely, you know, 0 carbs. And then you have like a carnivore style diet, which I'll give you my take on it. You know, I wrote the book, The 14-Day Carnivore Challenge, just to give somebody the idea that this is something that you could see some improvement in as little as 14 days. So 2 weeks of eating this way. And it doesn't have to be every day, every meal is nothing but ribeye steak, okay? Any of these foods on the inner ring here that are animal source, like eggs or fish, you know, fowl, like chicken and turkeys, for example, dairy, those are all animal source products. Again, that's a 0 plant diet or a 0 plant meal or several 0 plant meals. And, you know, maybe you go to the next ring out and you have a salad at the end of the day or something. It's not going to be probably a trigger food. You know, raw carrots are probably not a trigger food for most people. Going back to what Mark was saying earlier, those trigger foods, you know, that what's on your dinner plate at night? Do you think that's a healthy diet? Do you think that's going to get you to where you need to go? And if we're doing the right thing here, if we're limiting the dietary energy from carbohydrate and fat, you know, this is not a fat free for all. I really want protein to be primary in everyone's diet. That's what I do. And that's what's worked for me. And I've implemented this with clients, some of whom were severely obese. I had a gentleman that worked with me for about a year. He lost 80 pounds of body fat in 1 year. He was full-blown type 2 diabetic. He got off all of his medications, no longer able to be diagnosed as diabetic by addressing his diet lifestyle, adding an exercise program with some strength training and some cardio, you know, pretty much on a daily basis. And he was able to do all of that within a year, where the medical system had failed him
Yeah.
for years. I mean, it was just one, that medication is not working. Let's add another one. That one has side effects. Now we need 2 more medications for the side effect from the first medication. Where does it end?
Yeah.
And what was the feedback, Jason? Just luck. It was just luck, I suppose, was it?
Luck.
Luck.
That's usually what the doctors is like. Okay, you're one in a
Oh,
million.
yeah. Yeah. You just got lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's oh man. And it makes this graph is great because it makes me think of something too. The quality matters. And I think now more than ever, it's once you get over the ultra processed foods and the addictive chemicals and the bliss point, when
Mm-hmm.
you're realizing it may not be the food, but it's what they've done to the food, your
Yeah.
vegetables, pesticides, other
Mm.
forever chemicals. And as you sort of go into your own quality, that can make a huge difference. And I mean, we get put into these boxes where you mentioned, Jason, before, ribeyes.
Right.
Yeah, all of us, sure, I'd love to have a rib. That's for most of the people in the world, that's you wouldn't be able to sustain that financially. So we have to look at things from an objective lens and see,
Mm.
if you're gonna have a salad, where's your stuff grown? Where's your stuff grown? And this is kind of next level stuff, but in my opinion, it's really what they've done to the food. It may not be just the food. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and see that's the argument you have with people, because people will always say there's always these graphs, these pictures that when you look at people in the 1970s compared to what people look like now, people will always say, well, sure, back then they had the fruits, they had the carbohydrates, they had the different foods, but like you said, Tony, like fruit back then wasn't anywhere near as tasty as what it is right now. Like 100 years ago, fruit wasn't anywhere near as bitter as it is right now. So it's like, and the same with our food.
All
Food
right.
has changed in the last 50 years. They've added more chemicals to the food in the last 50 years. I've had this conversation with my mother. My mother is not even a nutritionist. She's not even a dietitian, but she can actually notice that the food doesn't taste the same.
yeah,
So when that's coming from your own mother that has lived in that period, these are the people that we should be listening to.
Yeah. Well, and maybe people had a higher tolerance back then. Not only like you said, the foods were not as highly processed and hyper palatable and heavily advertised and promoted the way they are now. There are factors that influence what is a safe level of carbohydrate intake. The more muscle mass you have, the more active you are, and the more insulin sensitive you are, the more of that
Hmm.
you can do. And that would
Yeah.
be, your safe starches like your potato, sweet potato, carrot, fruit, things like that. And Tony, I agree with your stance on the fruit. It's what they've done to it.
yeah,
Fruit from 50 years ago compared to modern fruit is grown with chemical fertilizers and pesticides, or in a greenhouse or something. It's been bred for maximum sugar content. It's everything. I mean, strawberries now, they can make strawberry the size of I don't know, like a softball or
Mm,
something, like a
mm,
baseball. A strawberry in nature is like about like the size of your pinky,
yeah.
the tip of your pinky. And
Mm,
even a generation ago, people are consuming a whole food diet. Yes, the quantity matters, but what we keep coming around to here is that the quality is what determines the quantity.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I'm working with someone who's obese. If they have to lose more than 10% of their body weight to even get into the healthy range, I'm recommending ketogenic at least most of the time, square one, because you have insulin resistance. That
yeah,
is the common thread here of all these metabolic disorders is hyperinsulinemia, chronically elevated insulin levels, and the inability to use that glucose as an energy source. If people become dependent on it, if you're constantly burning sugar, you never get around to burning your body fat the way
Mm,
we're designed to do. That's the whole reason the fat's there in the first place, is so we have an energy source when there's no carbohydrate available, which in our modern world, that never happens.
mm,
yeah. And Jason, what you're saying there too, it's like, when I'm with clients and I'm helping people with that, it's almost like the carbohydrates are a knob, like but once again, when we look at your graph right here, I want to point out something and I'll get your take on it. There's one thing that is absent because in my opinion is probably the most insidious and the worst thing. There is no business in any diet ever is seed oils.
Yeah.
So
I think they're in the French fries up there at the very top.
yes, well,
But
yeah,
you know, okay, but good point though, because when I talk about industrial seed oils, people always say, "Oh no, I use olive oil. I do this heart healthy, blah blah blah." You don't know how much of that stuff you're taking in because it's an ingredient in every processed food, and it's been marketed as heart healthy. It's vegetable, in air quotes, vegetable oils. Those things are not vegetables. Soybeans, canola oil, corn oil. You know, the reason they're so problematic, we have to use chemical solvents and high heat process to extract them. They create an incredible amount of inflammation and oxidation, damage practically every cell in the body, create poor quality cells that don't metabolize energy properly the way they're supposed to. The list of ills goes on and on. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Get those fake junk oils out of the diet. That move alone, right? That's one of the big three. And yeah, like you said, it's not directly represented, but it's hidden.
yeah,
It's in the cookie, and it's in
yeah,
the
It's in, yeah.
it's
right,
in
yeah.
all those things, right?
It's in everything, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like this is a beautiful graph, man, and I really appreciate it because it's kind of, especially from our point of view, where we've all been like directly responsible for reversing our health issues, all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I did. That's exactly like if you see that bullseye, and that's probably why I'm mostly a carnivore now, is because I simply ask the question, what is food and where did it come from?
Right.
And now that's a different. If I'm at an organic farm and I'm in Vancouver, my seasonal vegetables are going to be different from you, Jason, in Georgia. Going to be different than Mark's in Ireland. I would let that dictate first, and then if it's brought to you in a truck from Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
I don't eat it. It's just one of those things that's just very. I don't understand how my Canadian vegetables or fruits are more expensive than fruits from California and Mexico. That to me screams out there's something going on here. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys feel about the prices of these things can dictate. I focus on what my body needs and what I do well on. And I mean, it's very it's not dogmatic. It's not necessarily a specific diet, but it does have to do with how my food is available for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned the price. I think it's appalling that we have to decide whether we want regular produce or produce that has been sprayed with pesticides and fertilizers and that kind of thing, based on the basis of price. Something that's not going to add up and harm you costs 3 times what the regular stuff costs. A lot of that they shouldn't even be allowed to sell it.
Yeah.
Mm.
And how do you feel about, Jason, about the organic certifications and the stigmas?
Yeah, I mean, organic, it's kind of a dicey term because I think they can still allow a certain amount of fertilizers and pesticides and still call it organic. Certainly it's better than conventionally grown produce, I would say that, but there's so many problems with our food supply, and mostly it goes to how many human hands have been involved. You mentioned a term earlier I know is from, bliss point. When you said bliss point,
Yeah.
got me thinking about Michael Moss. Is it sugar, salt, fat, salt, sugar? I don't remember which order. So yeah, all these different characteristics that ultra processed foods have, and bliss point is one of them. So these food companies have hired scientists to study the exact amount of sugar or other additive that causes people's brains to just light up and crave and eat uncontrollably. These slogans like "once you pop, you can't stop," or "bet you can't
Bet
eat
you can't
this
just have
one."
one. Yeah.
That's their game. They admit that their products are addictive,
Yeah.
and so we have to treat this as a form of addiction. When people are hesitant to give up something, whether that's carbohydrate or whether that's French fries or whatever it is, it's because they're addicted to it. And the more we spread the word, make that common knowledge, the better off we'll all be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To switch gears a little bit, Jason, you said you have 2 books. One is
Yeah.
the 14-day Carnivore Challenge. What was the first one?
Yeah, the first book was Live Like an Athlete, released in 2018. That one was biographical to an extent, and it was really more about the mindset around transformation. The idea of live like an athlete. Athletes live intentionally. They don't just kind of figure it or see what's going to happen. They're very intentional. They eat on a schedule, they train on a schedule, they drink a certain amount of water, etc. And while I'm not suggesting that everyone, live like a professional athlete, we can borrow that philosophy and put that in our everyday life so that we're not just running on autopilot. I find that so many habits that people have, it's just doing that because it seems normal, because that's what you've always done or what everyone else is doing. And unless you question it, I was skeptical myself. When I first heard about intermittent fasting and ketogenic diet, I thought, that sounds kind of wild and crazy. I've never gone all day without eating in my entire life. So these days I fast at least once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 days a week, just depending on what I'm doing. And it's like nothing. That's been another perfect, just a great help to me. That's a piece of the toolkit. Intermittent fasting is not a diet. It's a timing principle, but you layer that on top of the proper diet. I want people to learn how to eat first before they learn how to not eat. But that has given me an incredible amount of self-control and discipline. When that little hunger pain comes up, that's just your body reminding you that you normally eat around this time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a dire emergency, you must eat or you're going to starve. What's really going on there is that's the signal that you're burning body fat, and your body doesn't want to give up its precious fat reserves. It wants to keep those. So we're trying to burn fat. That little hunger is a good thing. And if you ignore it, drink some water, go distract yourself, do something else, it goes away in about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And once you find out that hunger is something that you can just turn down like a volume knob, it doesn't really hold that much power anymore.
Yeah. And I know both of you guys help people and coach people, myself included. And that's the one thing, that a lot of people don't understand is that hunger. It's not necessarily hunger. You have to understand why is your brain sending signals because it's suffering? Is your brain sending signals because it's missing something, compared to somebody who's just, and I notice this, I don't know if you guys do, but I notice this with the people that are in my life that have nothing to do with they're still asleep, so to speak. And they talk about hunger. Like, if I don't eat right now, I'm going to lose my mind. Or if I don't eat right now, I'm going to go batshit.
It's like that panic around food. It's like that you hear people talking about, oh, I'm angry. That's something that I had all the time. I was always one of these people that I had to eat every 2 hours. I was very, very selfish. I'd have these containers. I'd be walking around with these containers all the time. I remember when I used to be in college, I wouldn't even pay attention to what the teacher was saying because I was thinking about food. I'd sneak out of the room and I'd have my food because I was convinced I had to eat every 2 hours. So yeah, I was always panicking around food. And even when I went out, let's say we were going out shopping by ourselves, and you can't enjoy it. You can't enjoy the moment. It's like you're constantly thinking about food. Oh, I'm starving. Whereas now, what you guys are saying, I could easily pick a day out a week if I wanted to and do a 24-hour fast, and it wouldn't faze me at all. And I never in my lifetime ever thought I could do a 24-hour fast. Never.
Well, people may not believe it, but what they're experiencing there is a form of withdrawal. And it's also this just conditioned behavior. It's a drop in blood sugar. So when we're getting carbohydrates mostly out of the picture, you get a natural appetite response. You're not constantly spiking your blood sugar, crashing your blood sugar, hunger and cravings. Let me get my energy back up. No, no energy, mood, or mindset around it. Mark, you said hangry. Okay, perfect example. We shouldn't have a change in personality just because we went 3 hours without eating something. That's ridiculous.
That's quite often the I put this into perspective with alcoholism, and quite often somebody who's an alcoholic, they change. It's not about one or two, or if they're drinking all day, but their personality changes with alcohol. And when we relate that to carbohydrates and what that does to somebody, if you're not able to tolerate, or you change your life based on a food or on, we'll call it the not food, and when you get it, you're a different person. What does that say? Like and that's something that I think, I'm sure all three of us have. I'm way more level now. Like, just, there's no ups and downs. There's no, if I'm hungry, yeah, I'll eat, or I don't have to. It's wild what happens. And it's really neat to see people that you're helping do the same thing. When they start to, that light bulb goes, wow, I'm just not hungry anymore.
Yeah, because that's the biggest issue I had. Like, I had a massive eating disorder, and I didn't even realize I had an eating disorder. And I knew I had an eating disorder, but for me, for years, I never had that food freedom. Never. I could never settle from the food that I had. I felt I always needed more, and even though I wasn't even hungry, I knew I could eat more if I wanted to. So for me, it was never at that stage where you know what, I'm content in my life now. I'm happy. I never had the happiness in my life ever around food. And that's the biggest thing I took away from the carnivore diet is the food freedom. I'm not
Yeah.
thinking about this anymore. I'm not getting angry around food anymore. I'm not basing my life around food anymore. I'm actually enjoying my life now. And that's the way, I think that's the important message is that people need to understand you don't need to enjoy your life around food.
Right.
You like, you know what I mean? That's where you miss. I like when I look back at my time with my partner, I missed out on a lot of quality time because of that. Because I was selfish, because I was constantly thinking about food, because I was constantly thinking about myself, my ego, looking a certain way. You kind of push people to the sides. You know what I mean? Whereas now, as I said, I'm in my 50s now. This is what I should have done a long time ago because, as I said, I'm happy now, and I think that's what most people are missing at the moment.
Jason, I want to talk about meal times and your thoughts on that. Like, what do you think about meal times? And breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Okay, so this might get a little
No,
controversial.
I
I'm
love
still
it.
I'm still a fan of up to 5 times per day we're feeding our body, but the main reason for that is I want to spread that high protein intake out over multiple meals. We can meet our nutrient requirements with 1 or 2
Mhm.
meals per day. Maybe not optimal, maybe possible. I'm also a certified personal trainer, so a lot of people I'm working with, myself included, strength training, 6 hours a week. We don't ever want to lose muscle. And this is something I always preach to my clients, females in particular, who are afraid to get too bulky and that sort of thing. You don't ever want to lose muscle. So the main reason you're getting that protein is not in response to hunger, it's to prevent hunger. So it's a
Mhm.
shift in the way you might be looking at things, but it's also there to supply the materials that you need to build and rebuild. Cellular turnover is always happening. Every organ, cell in your body always building up and tearing down. We need to stay ahead of that with the rebuilding material.
Hmm.
And what you'll find is that protein is virtually impossible to overeat. And good quality animal source protein is so satisfying that you can eat pretty much an unlimited amount of that and never really have to worry about it. A lot of people maybe not aware of this. This is a cutting edge scientific concept that I use with my clients. It's called protein leverage. And this is
Mm.
still fairly new. You guys might know about it, but the rest of the non-nerd, nutrition nerd population may not know about it. 2 Australian researchers, Raubenheimer and Simpson, did a meta-analysis of every species on the planet, humans included, and found that everybody eats until we get enough protein. And only
Beautiful.
when we meet our protein requirement will we stop eating. So if we have to eat extra fat and carbs in order to get the same amount of protein, we're just going to eat extra fat and carbs.
There's no off button.
Protein, right? Protein and energy are not the same thing. This
Mhm.
calories, just forget about protein when you're talking about calories. We're talking about fat and carbs. Those are energy sources. We either got to burn it or store it.
Mhm.
Protein, something totally different. So that's the main reason for spreading the meals out like that.
Mm.
Breakfast, most important meal of the day, maybe, but it could also be 20 hours from your last meal. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the minute you wake up. But there are some studies now to suggest that a high protein breakfast is pretty much this equally valuable, I'll say, to intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting can help if it's causing you to avoid things that are problematic while you're getting it under control, or if you just want to use that strategically to maybe accelerate a calorie deficit at certain times of the year, phases, to really get dialed in for something. It's helpful for that, but that shouldn't be your primary approach. Is I'm just not going to eat. I'm only going to eat one meal a day or 2 meals a day. You can bite your nails and make that work maybe for a little while, but eventually that's probably not going to be long term the best strategy for people. So, the answer is probably somewhere in the middle, somewhere between 1 meal a day and 5 meals a day.
Yeah.
As long as you're hitting that protein target, as long as you're limiting the diet, the processed energy that we talked about, mostly real food. But the timing rule has really helped me. This is one thing that's been very empowering for me, and I teach this concept. I only eat at certain times and not at other times, because
Yeah, there you go.
we
That's it.
consume,
Yeah.
thousands of useless energy calories a day. If you're grabbing a handful of this and a handful of that, go ahead and eat. Eat a real meal, and then you shouldn't need to eat again for at least another 4 hours, maybe even 6 hours.
I'm a big fan of that. Like, I kind of, my guidance to people is you're eating or you're not eating. Simple.
Right.
Like,
Right.
we can argue the times and the amounts and the stuff,
Right.
but like, we should not be snacking. You should not be, you should not be starving because you didn't eat enough. And I think we've all seen that. Jason, how do you feel about when you're helping people about under eating and getting enough food in?
I have a lot of clients, new clients in particular, and mostly women, who have damaged their metabolism, and they want more restriction. They want more exercise. They want fast more, eat less, or whatever. And I'm looking at the situation. I'm like, there's nowhere for you to go. You're already eating hardly nothing, and you're working out all the time. It doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but at that point, you've got to kind of slowly build your metabolism back up, before you can even entertain, okay, I'm going to fast. You're already fasting, so eat first, fast later if you need to. Um, I use fasting as just once a week. I call it the reset. We've been talking about all these awful processed foods, but I have a little confession to make. I'm a big fan of the so-called cheat day or refeed. It's a cheat meal. We'll say cheat meal or refeed meal.
Yeah.
My Reshape diet, this is based on the principles that I used. It's a type of cyclical ketogenic diet. We do eat some carbs on the weekends, and maybe indulge in some junk food. Try to keep it clean or healthy if you want. But that is just part of being human and realizing that we're not going to hit 100% absolute perfection, and that we don't need to. If there's something that you're craving and you're only doing that once or twice a week instead of once or twice a day, infinitely better. I'll just say it that way. If someone has iron will and discipline, they may be able to avoid those foods for months on end. Most people need a framework where they can at least pick their battles a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah.
I use
And
that. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, like I could probably be in that situation as well if I wanted to, because I'm metabolically flexible, and I know I could probably get away with, if I wanted to do like 1 day a week like yourself, Jason. But I just feel like for myself, I can never tolerate carbohydrates again. I just feel like for me, when I add them in, that just sets me off. I'm done.
That's probably not right.
I'm done. Yeah, it's like I think it depends on the person. Like if your body can tolerate those. I mean, we had Al on a few weeks ago. He's a bodybuilder. He does the same thing. His body can tolerate carbohydrates, and it doesn't do any damage to his mind or his body. So I completely get that. And I respect that, and I know there's a lot of people out there that can do that. I just know for me, because I struggled with an addiction with food, and I know what the problem was. It was a sugar addiction. I just can't be one of these moderators anymore. I just know, because it just, even with a piece of fruit, because I've tried it in the past. I had a banana. I experimented on myself a few times,
Caused a
and
problem.
it was like, honestly, it was just unbelievable.
But I think that's where, what you're both actually talking about is know thyself and understand it's not personal, and what you're trying, what your intention is. And I mean, I tell people the same thing, and I'm a big believer in we're supposed to live our lives.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some people, like my girlfriend with endometriosis, she reaps the benefits of any sort of cheating or any sort of it could potentially like destroyer cycle. So there's a nuance there. But I mean, I believe what you're saying, Jason, is the same. There's always a good, better, best. There's, you work within a framework, and what does it do? If you're cheating and all of a sudden that leads you to 7 days of like, I don't care anymore, we got to worry about it. But I mean,
that's why it is individual for sure, because, Mark, you talked about the addictions or the eating disorders. I thought I had an eating disorder. Binge eating disorder. I thought, I read the description. I'm like, that's what happens. I like lose control and just eat mindlessly even when I'm not hungry. But it was all about the appetite dysregulation and that blood sugar, like I'm talking about. But the point I was getting at earlier, I use that fasting day as what I call my reset day.
Beautiful.
The diet's divided into focused fat loss phase during the week. There's a refeed and refuel on the weekends. That's a clear barrier. When the weekend's over, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, there's no junk food in my house because I ate it all. So Saturday's over, it's gone. Sunday morning, all right, I'm not eating until the end of the day. I'm not going to eat anything. So, maybe that keeps me from getting into a little bit of something I might otherwise make not so healthy choices. But that reset day is there strategically. It's a clean break between this and this. That has allowed me to be able to do, like you said, more of a moderator type approach. But it sounds like you're an abstainer.
Yeah.
And I totally support that. If someone knows that they just can't do it ever, then you got to stick to your guns on that.
And I was actually an abstainer that now can moderate. And it's something I am, I don't suggest this for many people because I'm on it. I analyze everything that goes. If it's something, it's worth it, and I'm going to try something. As soon as I put it in my mouth, I am like observing. I'm observing how I feel, how I sleep, how the next day feels. And just to give you a reference, we went out for oysters, and we're like, I haven't had pasta for 3 years. We're going to try one, see how it feels. After 2 bites of noodles, I just wanted to drink the sauce. I was over it. And it was like, why did this was useless? Like, I mean, it wasn't that good. And I mean, I'm Italian. I miss it. But do I miss the event of the meal with my family, or do I miss the actual noodles? Well, I'll tell you what, I don't miss the noodles because it was interesting. Nothing really went wrong. But the next day we were out for a walk, and I was doing my normal walk, going through all these shops and seeing all these things. All of a sudden, my brain was like, dim sum. I haven't had dim sum for so long. Oh, that would be great. All these things that I see, these bakeries and stuff that I can walk through a grocery store now and not like it does nothing for me. It's just right to the meat section, right? Right to maybe cruise through the vegetables to see if there's anything there, but that's it. Now, in one day, this changed my mind, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. But, that's with, I think where we all have to be in eventually is getting to that N of 1 and knowing yourself and being honest.
Yeah. I'm the same as you, Tony. The minute that I take these foods in, these foods just send signals to the brain. It's like bang, 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 bang. There's sugar coming here. The sugar coming here. We're in trouble, and that's where I'm weak. I am extremely weak because when I walk through the store and I'm walking through a buffet, automatically I'm like, okay, I need this food in my life, and you know what I mean, and I don't want to be in that situation anymore because I know we were speaking about this earlier on about the fight or flight situation where you're panicking around food. I don't want to be. I choose not to be in that situation anymore, and I've done this over the last 4 years. I have experimented on the foods that I used to enjoy. Like I used to be a huge soda drinker. I used to drink like soda like 3 times a day, and I experimented this around 6 or 8 months ago, and I think I had 2 sups. And no word of a lie, within an hour, I could feel the aggression. My mental health changed.
Wow.
I was like, holy shit! Like this is not good. I can understand why now I was aggressive in the past because I have a rugby career. I used to play rugby, and I was told by these tough specialists that before you walk on a pitch, make sure you have these energy drinks. Your what do they call them? Red Bull. I used to have a Red Bull before I stepped out on the pitch, and I was like an animal. Even when people used to hit me, I wouldn't even feel it. You know what I mean? So honestly, it's only when you become adapted you really know how powerful these foods are and these drinks are.
And Jason, I want to get your take because you're there, and I want to get your opinions and your feelings about Make America Healthy Again, because
Okay.
I think this is something the world is starting to see, and I don't believe it's just an American thing. This is it's kind
Yeah,
of a
the rest of the Western world is going to follow it, basically, just
yeah
like we fell in line with, things that have led to the current circumstances. I'm in support of this. One little criticism, though, and I'm just going to say, I think too much attention is being paid in the media to additives, dyes, and preservatives. And, this company's going to get artificial dyes out of their products by next year, 2 year, whatever. Look at what we're adding these things to. Okay. The
mm,
food, quote unquote, food like items itself, they are the problem. Whether we put a healthier dye in it or, take a preservative out of it or whatever, that's insignificant compared to what is a healthy diet. And unless the guidelines change, none of the rest of it is going to change.
yeah
That's really the bottom line. You can say people don't follow the guidelines, but these guidelines mandate everything. Mark, you
yeah
mentioned earlier, hospital food. Those hospitals have to go by these guidelines. Public schools, universities, you name it, fire department, military, whatever, any institution, they have to go by these guidelines. And so we're just telling people, prioritize grains, which I guess because they're super profitable and they can be transformed into addictive food-like products. I guess
yeah
that's why we're going to prioritize those. Not really sure why. And, make sure you limit your saturated fat, especially from meat and eggs and cholesterol, because that's going to clog your arteries and kill you. I hope your audience knows about Ansel Keys and the 7-country study. Do your homework, people. Just Google those terms and see if you can even find anything using that search engine. I don't know, but the truth is out there. No, we're not start raving lunatics. This is true.
yeah
It's like watching the blinders come off of somebody's eyes sometimes when I have this conversation with them. They have to decide whether they're willing to accept everything they've ever believed is a lie up until
yeah
this point. But that's how deep the rabbit hole goes.
yeah. And I absolutely agree with you, because that's sort of in my path, in my journey. When you start to when you acknowledge that you need to change, whatever reason that may be, whether you're ill or whether you're just physically broken.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start to learn about what things are and you trace it back and start realizing the history of how we got here,
Mm-hmm.
it was frightening. And I was like, that was the wake up call for me. I was like, how could we be so wrong about nutrition?
Mm-hmm.
And I had doctors in my life telling me, well, we're not. I'm like, well, obviously there's something going on. When you have every single non-communicable diseases going up exponentially every year, this started somewhere. And, in my opinion, it was, Ansel Keys was a
Yeah,
pretty big
that's
catalyst.
big culprit behind all of this. But more to the point, I am in favor of this Make America Healthy Again.
Mm-hmm.
This movement, it's raising awareness, and this is bringing things that those of us in this ancestral health community have known about for a long time now is
Yeah.
now becoming more mainstream. More people are hearing about it, and it's like, okay, finally, we're getting somewhere. There are people that have been working on this for decades, and a few years back, they were looked at as being like, I'm
Mm,
not really sure if that's true, or what. Now it's like you can't deny it. I mean, the truth is just out
yeah.
there, and more and more people are becoming aware of it. And it is, I think, the tide is changing. We're starting to talk about ultra processed foods. Okay, well, the average American may not have no idea what an ultra processed food
Yeah.
even is. What's
Mm.
the difference? I had a lady, she was older, at the gym that I was coaching, and she says, no, what are I know what processed food is, but what's an ultra processed food? Like,
Yeah.
that's a relatively new concept.
Totally.
That's
And I
something
mean,
that's been messed with so much that it's not even recognizable. It doesn't even fit the definition of food.
yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, Bill Schindler's Eat Like a Human, saying, like they were processing food
Mhm.
before we became civilizations, but they
Right,
were the natural, the fermentations,
right,
the curing. Like salt was a big deal,
right.
and now it kills you. Like
Yeah.
this. So I hear you, and we're actually going to do our podcast this Sunday. a little bit about the whole Make America Healthy Again, because now I hope, and this is my prayers, it doesn't get personal. It doesn't start flagging the people that are trying based on their character, not what they're trying to do. And I think, you being in the US, I don't know if you noticed that, but how do you feel about that stuff when they just destroy the characters of these people that are trying to, like yourself, even? I don't know if you felt
Yeah.
anything.
That's been going on since the early 1900s. The oil barons, the Rockefellers of the world, there was a massive disinformation campaign to discredit all alternative types of healing, herbalism, chiropractic, whatever it is. That's quackery. That doesn't work. Those people are lunatics or whatever, to discredit them, to push all the money towards this, relatively new petroleum-based industry, this
Yeah.
pharmaceutical drug industry. The word prescription has been robbed of its original meaning. A prescription, one time a health practitioner would prescribe a regimen of behavior and possibly diet modifications and things like that to help resolve an illness or condition.
Mm.
Now we think prescription just means
Drugs.
prescription drug,
Yeah.
pharmaceutical. And so
Nice.
we could get back to that prescribing. What should you do? I created a little meme that I have shared with a lot of people. Ask your doctor if protein and weights are right for you. That's the commercial you're never going to see, because there's no profit in
No
eat
doubt.
protein, lift weights, be healthy, game over.
Well, you know what, Jason, that actually is a good segue into, let's have you back and let's do a part 2 on
All right.
that subject right there, because I think that's something that people don't realize. The homeopathies, the Ayurvedas, the traditional Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
Holy cow, like they've been completely discredited in the form of petroleum pills. And I think that's a dark truth that once you become aware of that, that can shake the tree a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
But before we want to respect your time. But
Sure.
what's your day of eating like? Like, just walk us through that before we.
Yeah, a day of eating. Okay, so I'm up, usually between 4 and 5 a.m. I have a little coffee to start my day. I do put some ready to drink protein in there, or maybe a scoop of some collagen powder or something like that. And then I'm off to the gym to do some fasted cardio. I'm doing up to an hour of just like a hill walk on a treadmill. That's my kind of simulating my primal hunter-gatherer mode, where I got to go out and hunt and gather something before I can eat. Meal 2, we'll say, technically my first real food meal. I usually just do some scrambled eggs. That's quick and easy. One whole egg, pastured egg, of course. And I take advantage of an ultra-processed food, or a processed food, believe it or not. Egg beaters or liquid egg whites, that's a processed food. They're not all 100% terrible. Tony, you alluded to this. At one point in our history, processing improved the nutrient quality.
That
Now
was the
it's the
reason.
exact opposite. But, take something like egg whites or egg beaters. That is high in protein. There's very little fat and carbohydrate in there. So I just do that to raise that protein to energy ratio. I try to get that above a 2-to-1, 2 grams of protein to every 1 gram of fat, basically, because I'm eating very low carbohydrate for the day, by getting some big wins in the morning, like a 3-to-1 or even a 5-to-1, high protein, low energy. Let's see, about 1 o'clock, I'm going to be doing my lunch, which normally I do a couple packs of salmon. Okay. This is very high quality, tested for mercury, no added salt, all this. That's another processed food. It's in a packet. You can just rip the thing open and eat it on the go if you need to. Do a couple of those. That's lunch. So far, haven't really eaten anything other than animal products. So mostly, carnivore-ish all day. Back to the gym for some weight training in the afternoon. Usually doing, about 30 minutes, nothing too crazy, just training 3 body parts per day. And then about an hour after that, it's time for dinner. Beef is always my center of my meal. I usually just do burgers. I cook a big batch of them on the weekend, and then I've got that ready to go. If I want to do maybe a taco salad or something with some ground beef, I might do that. I do have some veggies along with that, just for the weight and volume of food, so I'm not tempted to, dig around in the pantry for something else. Might not be so good. But yeah, pouring on the nutrient. Some some plants do have nutrient qualities. We can't say, you know, they're 100% terrible 100% of the time. I think they've been really misrepresented as far as how beneficial fruits and vegetables are. That whole recommendation to eat 3 to 5 servings of fruit and vegetables every day is almost as ridiculous as 6 to 11 servings of bread, rice, and pasta. But
Yeah.
you know, dinner, okay, maybe then I'm going to have some kind of little healthy dessert like a protein shake or protein bar or something like that. Yes, I've got my favorite little low carb ice cream that I do in the evenings as well. So there's a little balance to the whole thing. But yeah, that's a typical day. I'm hitting those 5 meals a day. You know, 40 to 50 grams of protein per meal is what I'm looking for, including shakes. So
Mm,
I'm up to about 200 to 250 grams of protein per day.
wow.
So far, my kidneys haven't shut down. I've been doing that well over, well over 10 years. And that's another thing. Protein has been made this boogeyman. You know, people are afraid
Mhm.
of protein for no apparent reason. Like that's the whole entire purpose of eating is to get enough protein,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So do that. But yeah, that's what it's all about. And you know, sometimes in the year I might throw in a little fasting day, skip meal 1, 2, 3, maybe just eat 2 meals a day, you know, on a schedule every other day at most. And
Awesome.
that's about it.
Right on, man. Well, I would encourage everybody to check out the Reshape Your Life podcast and Jason's YouTube channel. Jason, where can people find you and get a hold of you?
Yeah, best thing to do is go to direct.me/reshape. My primary domain is reshapehealthandfitness.com, but there are a lot of links that are hard to find. I got them all together on that direct.me/reshape. That's also where you can find out about my 4-week fast track challenge. I got another round coming up in about 3 days, September 1st. We're doing a group challenge where people are going to be doing all this stuff, some intermittent fasting, some low carb, some high protein, you know, carnivore-ish approach to things and really getting their health dialed in, really getting things under control. So all your listeners here are welcome to participate in that as well. And yeah, thank you so much for plugging the YouTube channel. I love to do Q&A videos for my members. I
Awesome.
use closed group coaching format with my online clients or my on-demand clients who are using my mobile app to track
Hmm.
their meals and their workouts and all those good things. So they can just ask a question and I'll make a YouTube video for them. I've got hundreds of videos out there and there are
Awesome.
several, you know, interviews with people like the two of you that live on that channel as well. And I've got some playlists there of other people's content that I've curated across the internet. So if you want to know more about a particular topic, you can research it right there on the Reshape Your Life YouTube channel.
And
Amazing.
we will definitely post. We'll get everything in the description for anybody that's interested in that. Like, man, and Jason, you're
Yes, sir.
man. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and you know, just the kindred spirit and your take on things. I think people would benefit highly by reaching out to you, especially if they're new to this awakening. You know,
Sure.
very very cool. Mark, any last words?
It's been a pleasure, Jason.
Absolutely. Good to
It's
meet
been
you.
an
You
absolute
guys are
pleasure.
both welcome to come on my channel, any of my social media. If we need to do Instagram Live or any of that, you're welcome anytime.
Oh, I love it,
Amazing.
man.
Amazing.
All right, boys. Well, thank you for being here, Jason, again. And we are live every Sunday at the Meat of the Matter podcast on our YouTube channel, 10 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. in the UK and Ireland, 7 p.m. in the Netherlands. Peter, once again, he's on his little tour to Peter on his bike. We definitely have to have you back, Jason, because I'm sure Peter would have a lot of stuff to say and questions for you. He's fine. He's a Dutch cyclist and he drinks weird things. Anyway, guys, we'll see you soon. Jason, thanks again. We'll post all that stuff if you want to just hang on for a quick sec, and we will see you soon.